Right in the middle of the grand family dinner, the husband brazenly let his mistress sit in his lawful wife's seat. Without a screaming match, without a scene of jealous rage, the wife simply set down her fork and walked away. Yet, exactly 3 seconds later, a horrifying truth was unveiled, leaving the seconds later, husband's entire family frozen in dead silence, not daring to move a muscle. What was that secret? The smell of sizzling bacon grease and roasted garlic hit my nose, making my stomach churn. A wave of nausea rose in my throat, but I forced it down. It was 6 a.m., and the kitchen of the Bel Air mansion was already sweltering like a furnace. Today was my father-in-law Richard's 60th birthday, an event my mother-in-law, Eleanor, had been bragging about to everyone at their country club for a month. She wanted a party that would be the talk of the town, and naturally, the person behind all that glamour, the one who had to wake up at 4 a.m. to prep the beef, Wellington, glaze the Cornish hens, and meticulously pipe the deviled eggs was none other than me, Hannah, the eldest daughter-in-law, or more accurately, a high-class unpaid maid. Hannah, why are you moving like molasses? Where are the prosciutto-wrapped asparagus spears I told you to arrange? Are you trying to make our guests laugh at this family for bringing in such an incompetent daughter-in-law? Eleanor's shrill voice echoed from the living room, accompanied by the sharp, grating sound of her designer mules clicking against the marble floor. I hurriedly wiped my wet hands on my apron and stepped out, keeping my head down. Mom, I'm finishing the last tray. I'll bring them out right now. Eleanor shot me a sidelong glare, her eyes as sharp as a scalpel, scanning me from head to toe. She jutted her chin toward the pile of expensive fine china, scattered on the counter. Be careful with those. If you break even one, you could sell your parents' rundown house in the Midwest and still not be able to afford a replacement. By the way, did Tyler not come home last night either? My heart skipped a beat. Tyler, my husband, the CEO of Tyler Holdings, the man for whom I had sacrificed my youth, giving up a scholarship for a master's TITA degree in London to step back and be his domestic support system. He said the company has an urgent merger. He had to pull an all-nighter. Mom, I replied, my voice dry, trying to mask the bitterness spreading in my mouth. A man's ambitions belong out in the world. As a CEO, he has thousands of things to worry about. As his wife, you should know your place. Keep his meals hot and his water poured, and don't nag or try to control him. He brings in the money to feed you and this entire house. You just stay home and leech off him. What do? You know? Eleanor rolled her eyes and turned away. I went back into the kitchen, looking at the pot of simmering broth. The bubbles rose and burst into nothingness, much like my own trust. Leeching off him? For the past 4 years, who was the one staying up all night secretly doing the company's financial reports? Who was the one who sold her grandmother's heirloom jewelry to cover the losses when Tyler's crypto investments tanked? They thought I knew nothing, but I knew everything. I knew Tyler wasn't at the office last night. At 11 p.m., the heavy iron gates had groaned open. The sleek black Porsche 911 rolled into the driveway. Tyler stepped out, the top 2 buttons of his white dress shirt undone, his silk tie askew. He stumbled into the house, the heavy stench of bourbon unable to mask the cloying, sweet scent of Chanel No. 5A, perfume I never wore. I reached out to take his suit jacket to hang it up when something bulky in the sleece. Inner pocket fell to the hardwood floor with a soft thud. It was a receipt from Cartier on Rodeo Drive. What are you doing? Clumsy idiot. Tyler swatted my hand away, barking loudly, his eyes bloodshot. He snatched the receipt, crumpled it up, and shoved it into his pants pocket, his movements awkward and guilty. Tyler, what did you buy that was so expensive? I tried to keep my voice as calm as possible, even though both my hands were trembling behind my back. Tyler looked at me, his gaze a mix of arrogance and disgust. Men's business. What does a woman know? Here, take this. He pulled out his wallet and threw a plosher stack of crisp $100 bills onto the floor, right at my feet. Make sure everything is perfect for my dad's party. If there's any leftover, go to a spa and fix your face. Looking at you now, you look like a tired lunch lady. I'm sick of it. With that, he staggered up the sweeping staircase, leaving me standing alone in the massive, freezing living room. I slowly knelt down, not out of weakness, but to pick up the scattered bills. The green paper felt ice cold against my fingertips. Under the dazzling crystal chandelier, my shadow stretched long and distorted on the floor. I didn't cry. The tears of a betrayed woman had dried up long ago. I tightly gripped the crumpled receipt that I had managed to swap out when picking up the money. The receipt clearly stated, diamond pendant necklace, $8,500. Customer, Tiff Tiff. The nickname sounded cute, but it slashed at my heart like a razor. I smirked a twisted smile, but one filled with danger. Tomorrow was the birthday party. The real show was yet to come. At exactly noon, the Los Angeles sun was beating down, radiating heat off the Los Angeles pavement. Carrying a multi-tiered thermal lunchbox, my back damp with sweat, I stood in the lobby of the downtown skyscraper that housed Tyler Holdings. Today, I had made a rich, garlic-heavy seafood ciopino and sourdough bread, a messy, pungent dish that Tyler once called his ultimate comfort food, saying only his wife could make it right. I wanted to test just how much of his marital loyalty remained. Ma'am, who are you looking for? Deliveries go to the side desk, the young security guard stopped me, looking awkwardly at my faded floral sundress, a cheap outfit my mother-in-law insisted I wear to save money. I am Tyler's wife, the CEO. I'm bringing him lunch. I held my head high, trying to maintain my last shred of dignity. Before the guard could answer, the authoritative click-clack of high heels echoed from the elevators. A young woman, no more than 24, wearing a skin-tight designer dress that showed off every curve and a face full of flawless makeup, stepped out. It was Tiffany, my husband's executive assistant, and the owner of last night's diamond necklace. Oh, Hannah! Goodness, you trudged all the way here in this heat to bring the boss lunch? You're so thoughtful. No wonder Mr. Tyler always praises you as the perfect traditional housewife. Tiffany babbled, her voice as sweet as honey, laced with arsenic. She brushed past me, the overwhelming scent of Chanel No. 5, hitting my nose, blatantly marking her territory. I gripped the handle of the lunchbox tighter, offering a thin smile. Taking care of my husband is my duty. You work so hard, Tiffany. It's noon and you haven't taken a break? Oh, I'm heading out to entertain a client with the boss right now. Ah, there he is, Tiffany cheered, waving at the elevator doors that had just opened again. Tyler stepped out, looking sharp in an Armani suit. Seeing me standing there, the smile on his lips vanished, replaced by a visible scowl of annoyance. He walked over briskly, lowering his voice into a harsh whisper. What are you doing here? How many times have I told you not to show your bare face and wear these hillbilly clothes to my office? Are you trying to embarrass me in front of my employees? I made that seafood stew you like. Before I could finish, Tiffany stepped in. Feigning a stumble, she crashed right into me. Crash! The thermal lunchbox flew out of my hands, hitting the polished marble floor. The rich, red, garlic-scented ciopino splashed everywhere, splattering across Tyler's perfectly pressed trousers and Tiffany's designer heels. Oh my God! Boss, I am so sorry, I'm so clumsy. Hannah, I didn't mean to. Tiffany shrieked, acting flustered, but her eyes gleamed with triumphant malice. What the hell is wrong with you? Tyler roared not at Tiffany, but at me. He shoved my shoulder hard, making me stumble backward, nearly slipping in the mess. I told you not to come. Now look, the lobby looks like a garbage dump. Where is security? Clean this up immediately. It smells disgusting. I stood frozen, a numb sensation spreading from my toes to the top of my head. In the middle of the grand lobby, dozens of employees were walking by, their curious, mocking, and judgmental eyes piercing me like needles. The husband I shared a bed with, the man who once promised me the world, was now treating a meal I made with love like disgusting garbage. Tiffany hastily grabbed some tissues to wipe Tyler's pants, her movements overly intimate. As she bent down to pick up the lid of the lunchbox, she leaned close to my ear, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. Hey sis, in this day and age, a wife who only knows how to cook is just a glorified maid. You've sat in the CEO's wife's chair for far too long. It's way too big for you now. Tyler dusted off his sleeve, looking at me with pure revulsion. Go home right now. Don't let me see you here for another second. Then he turned to Tiffany. his voice softening instantly. Let's go, babe. We're late for the client. I'll take you to buy a new pair of shoes. They stepped over the spilled food, stepping over my dignity, got into his luxury car, and sped off. I stood there alone, looking at the ruined meal on the floor. A hot tear rolled down my cheek, tasting salty. I didn't wipe it away. I just let it fall. I silently swore. This would be the very last tear I ever shed, for this pathetic excuse for a man. I bent down, not to clean up, but to retrieve the stainless steel lunchbox. The metal reflected my face. My eyes no longer held any resignation. They were as cold and sharp as a freshly honed blade. I returned to the mansion in the late afternoon. The house was quiet, save for the sound of the news playing on the TV. Eleanor was sitting on the sofa, fingering a pearl necklace, her eyes glued to the screen, but her mind seemed elsewhere. You're back? Where did you disappear to all afternoon? Didn't even make lunch. Are you trying to starve me to death? Eleanor didn't even look at me, throwing out accusations out of habit. I didn't answer. I walked straight upstairs to my room, opening the vanity drawer where I kept our joint savings account booklet. It held $100,000 money from my late grandparents' estate, combined with what I had saved up taking freelance accounting gigs over the years. I had planned to withdraw some to send to my parents in Ohio for my dad's medical bills. The drawer was empty. The bank book was gone. My heart pounded. I tore through the closet, the mini safe. I knew the Beck's passcode. Nothing. Only some random insurance papers remained. I rushed downstairs, my voice cracking. Mom, did you see the blue savings book I kept in my drawer? Eleanor leisurely took a sip of her iced tea, her eyes still on the TV. Oh, that blue book? Tyler took it to the bank to withdraw the money this morning. Withdraw it? For what? That was my money for. Your husband's money is his to do with as he pleases. Eleanor cut me off, her voice hardening. He said he needed capital to expand some branch and to buy a new car for entertaining clients. That old car of his is a few years old now. It's too shabby. No one respects a CEO in a bad car. I was stunned. Buying a new car when his current Porsche was perfectly fine? And, more importantly, that was my blood, sweat, and tears. But Mom, that was my money. My grandparents left it to me. Slap. A vicious slap landed on my left cheek, making my ear ring and me see stars. Eleanor jumped up, her face flushed with rage, pointing a manicured finger right at my face. Shut your mouth, you disrespectful brat. You come into this house, live in luxury, and now that your husband takes a little money for business, you're going to be stingy? You want to nickel and dime this family? What money? Is yours? The moment you married into the Tyler family, even your corpse belongs to us, let alone some pennies from your trashy Midwestern parents. My cheek burned, but my heart turned to ice. I looked at the woman in front of, to me, the one I had served for 4 years like my own mother. Now, she revealed, her true form, a greedy, wicked, shameless monster. She didn't see me as a daughter, she saw me as an ATM that did chores. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I stood up straight, smoothed my messy hair, and looked directly into Eleanor's eyes. My gaze was so cold and dead that it made her flinch and pull her hand back. I understand, Mom. I don't regret giving my husband the money. I just hope he invests it in the right place. I turned and walked upstairs, locking the bedroom door behind me. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in a long time. Hello? Hannah? How are you? Carter's deep, familiar voice came through. My old best friend, now a high-profile corporate lawyer and a ruthless financial shark. Project Phoenix, the one you mentioned last time. Activate it for me? Right. Now. There was a second of silence on the line, followed by the rustling of papers. Are you sure? Once we start, there's no turning back. You'll be going up, against his entire family. I looked in the mirror, seeing the red handprint on my cheek, but my eyes were blazing with resolve. I don't need a way back. I'm going to take back everything that belongs to me. Every single cent. The next day, the tension in the Tyler mansion was as tight as a piano wire, about to snap. The monthly family meeting was held earlier than usual, in the Persleys' one he's as 11 and one her 4. Common. Lavish living room. Richard sat imperiously in his armchair, swirling a glass of scotch. Eleanor sat next to him, her nose in the air. Tyler sat across from them, scrolling through his phone, occasionally smiling. And notably, Tiffany was there too. The mistress sat right next to Tyler, holding his hand, acting as natural as if she were the actual daughter-in-law of this house. I brought out a tray of freshly squeezed orange juice. As I was about to set it on the coffee table, Eleanor waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. Just leave it there and go back to the kitchen to cut some fruit. Women shouldn't eavesdrop on important business matters. And cut it nicely. Don't make a mushy mess like that soup yesterday. Tiffany covered her mouth, giggling, shooting me a provocative look. Take your time, Hannah. I'm craving some green mango with chili salt. Slice it really thin. For me, okay? I swallowed my anger, set the tray down, and quietly retreated to the kitchen. But I didn't go far. I stood behind the thick oak door, leaving a small crack, just enough to catch the voices from the living room. My skills in eavesdropping and memorizing financial data, the skills of a senior auditor, my actual profession before I got married had never dulled. I figured it out, Dad. Tyler's voice boomed with arrogance. Those commercial real estate properties in Beverly Hills that we bought using company stock. I'll slowly transfer the deeds into Tiffany's name. That way, if anything goes south with Hannah, she won't be able to touch a dime. The lawyers said it's marital property, but if we can prove it was a debt or legally transferred out, the wife gets left with nothing. Richard nodded in satisfaction. Smart move, son. The wealth of this family cannot be allowed to leak out. Hannah seems clueless, but her parents in the Midwest are always asking for handouts. We need to cut ties now. But baby, Tiffany's voice whined, when are you going to be done with her? I don't want to be known as the other woman forever. My parents are pushing for a wedding. Relax, babe. Tyler patted her hand. Soon. Wait until the merger with the European partners is finalized next month. Then, I'll throw the divorce papers in her face. Even if she begs to stay, she won't be able to. I'll turn her into a penniless, discarded ex-wife. Let's see if she has the face to look at anyone. Then, the blood in my veins boiled. So, they weren't just having an affair. They weren't just stealing my money. They were actively plotting to throw me out onto the streets in the most humiliating way possible. Clueless? Let's see who the real clueless one is in this chess game. I pulled out a micro voice recorder hidden in my apron pocket, the one I had, secretly taped under the coffee table while mopping the floor at dawn. The red light blinked, signaling that every word they said had been perfectly captured. Suddenly, my phone rang loudly. I jumped, fumbling to silence it, but it was too late. Who's that? Who's snooping in the kitchen? Tyler yelled, followed by the heavy thud of footsteps rushing toward the door. I quickly shoved the recorder deep into the rice dispenser, grabbed a paring knife, and pretended to be intensely focused on peeling a mango. The kitchen door flew open. Tyler stood there, his face dark with rage, followed closely by Tiffany, her eyes narrowing like a fox. What the hell are you doing sneaking around in here? Did you hear anything? Tyler growled, stepping uncomfortably close to me. I looked up, still holding the razor-sharp knife, the steel gleaming under the overhead lights. I'm peeling mangoes for Tiffany. Why are you so worked up? What was I supposed to hear? The part about you buying more land? Or the part where Mom called me clumsy? I replied, my voice completely deadpan, my eyes wide with feigned innocence. Tyler stared at my face, searching for a hint of panic, but found none. He sneered, watch yourself. Women who know too much usually don't meet a good end. Tiffany glided past Tyler, circling me as if evaluating expired goods. She pinched a slice of mango, took a bite, and immediately spit it out into the parted sink. Too sour. How do you pick fruit? Or are you deliberately trying to give me an ulcer? She leaned close to my ear as Tyler turned to leave, her voice hissing through her teeth. Don't think I don't know what you're up to. Where is the recorder? Hand it over. I was slightly taken aback. This girl was sharper than I thought. Her airhead trophy wife persona was just a facade. She had rocks in her head, too. I smiled, a smile that made Tiffany take a step back. What recorder, sweetie? I only have this. I pulled out my phone, opened a photo, and held it up to Tiffany's face. The photo showed a frail, middle-aged woman lying in a stark white hospital bed, surrounded by tangled tubes and dialysis machines. It was Tiffany's mother, receiving treatment at Cedars-Sinai. Tiffany's face drained of color. How do you have a picture of my mother? What are you going to do to her? I put the phone back in my pocket and whispered back, my voice soft but freezing. Cold. Your mother is very sick. Dialysis costs thousands a month, not to mention out-of-network medications. The money you've leached off my husband will probably only keep her going for a few months, right? Do you know who the GAPLE, largest anonymous donor and board member of that hospital ward is? Tiffany trembled, her eyes wide with terror. She knew I had a grip on her fatal weakness. If you want your mother to rest in peace and keep getting treatment, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Whether I know what goes on in this house or not is none of your business. Understand? I lightly patted Tiffany's cheek, where her thick layer of foundation was cracking from fear. From the living room, Richard's voice echoed. Where is Tiffany? Come back out. Here, we need to finalize the deed transfers. Tiffany looked at me, then toward the living room. She was caught in a vice grip between two forces, money and status on one side, her mother's life on the other. I saw the hesitation in her eyes. A crack had just appeared in this devil's alliance. Yes, I'll be right there, Tiffany called out, her voice shaking. She turned back to me, her eyes full of hatred, but also absolute helplessness. You just wait. This isn't over. I watched her walk away, the smile fading from my lips. I knew I had just lit the fuse of a bomb, and the countdown had begun. I opened the rice dispenser, retrieved the recorder, and gripped it tightly. Ding. A text message from Carter arrived. Found the evidence of tax evasion for Tyler Holdings over the past 3 years. When do you want to drop it? I texted back 2 words. Not yet. Wait for Judgment Day. Judgment Day would be the grand family gathering this coming weekend. The rain drummed heavily against the kitchen's tin roof, sounding as mournful as a widow's wail. Today was my birthday. I was turning 28. On the massive oak dining table, large enough to seat 10, there was only a single bowl of cheap, instant ramen with a cracked egg. The steam rose, fogging up my glasses. No. Flowers, no candles, no gifts, and naturally no husband. This morning before work, Tyler had tossed a curt sentence at me. I'm flying to Aspen for 3 days with clients to sign the resort deal. Fend for yourself for dinner, and don't call and annoy me while I'm in meetings. I had just nodded, pressing a bottle of antacids into his hand, reminding him not to drink too much. He snatched it without looking at me and walked out to his car. I picked up my chopsticks and lifted a noodle to my mouth. The spicy, artificial seasoning burned my nose, making my eyes water. Swallowing the noodles felt like swallowing my own misery. 4 years of marriage, and he hadn't remembered my birthday once. Year 1, he said he was busy building his empire. Year 2, he said women cared too much about nonsense. Year 3, he forgot entirely. And this year, he went on a business trip. A Facebook notification chimed loudly in the quiet house. I picked up my phone. It was an alert from a burner account I had created to keep tabs on my husband and his mistress. Staring me in the face was a photo uploaded 15 minutes ago on Tiffany's profile. The photo showed a lavish feast on a balcony overlooking the ocean, flickering, candlelight, swirling red wine, and a massive Alaskan king crab. But what shredded my heart wasn't the luxury. It was the man's hand holding a wine glass, clinking with hers. That hand wore a blue dial Rolex Submariner, the only gift I had ever given Tyler, bought with the entirety of my pre-marriage savings. The caption was short but lethal. Happy birthday to me. Thanks to the best boss for making up for my late birthday at Paradise. Love you. Checked in at the resort at Pedregal, Cabo San Lucas. So he didn't go to Aspen. He went to Cabo. And today wasn't Tiffany's birthday. Hers had passed a month ago. They were using my birthday to trample on my self-respect, turning my special day into their romantic getaway. Blood rushed to my face. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. Into my noodles. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a boulder, every breath a sharp pain. They were eating king crab and drinking fine wine, using my blood and sweat, while I sat here eating ramen in this freezing house. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Crying now was pathetic. I switched to my burner account, named Just Passing By, and slowly typed a comment on her post, which was already flooded with likes and congratulations from her. Fake friends. Nice watch, nice view, but be careful, sweetheart. Eating too much rich food causes gout. And stealing someone else's husband causes bad karma that'll knock your teeth out. Oh, and by the way, is that watch a cheap fake, or did he steal? Act it from his wife's savings? I hit send. My heart hammered against my ribs. Exactly 30 seconds later, the photo vanished. Tiffany had deleted the post. Instantly, my phone lit up with a call from Tyler. I smirked, wiped my eyes, cleared my throat to regain my most nonchalant voice, and answered. Hello? Yes, Tyler? What the hell are you doing on the internet? Tyler roared through the phone. The sound of ocean waves crashing in the background. That burner account is you, isn't it? Are you stalking me? I don't know what you're talking about. I played dumb, making my voice tremble, as if I were about to cry. I'm just at home eating ramen by myself. Are you done with your meetings? Why is it so loud there? Dead silence on the other end. Tyler realized he had just slipped up, admitting. He was checking Facebook instead of being in a meeting. He cleared his throat, trying to salvage his authority. I'm taking a walk by the lake to clear my head after the negotiations. You watch yourself, stop being a paranoid, jealous psycho. I'm hanging up. International roaming is expensive. The dial tone echoed endlessly. I put the phone down on the table. The ramen was bloated and cold. I stood up and dumped the entire bowl into the trash. From this moment on, I would never eat instant ramen again, and I would never be the quote, submissive, enduring Hannah of yesterday. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my laptop, opening an Excel file named Project Phoenix. The numbers danced before my eyes, sharp, cold, and ruthless. Suddenly, the doorbell rang frantically. It was 2 a.m. Who would come at this hour? I tiptoed to the peephole. Outside stood a man in a heavy raincoat, clutching a thick envelope. I recognized the silhouette. It was Richard's personal assistant. I opened the door, a blast of cold wind making me shiver. The assistant, a grim-faced man dripping with rain, shoved the thick envelope into my hands and spoke rapidly, out of breath. Ma'am, the boss told me to give this to you. He said to look at it immediately and prepare yourself. Without another word, he turned and vanished into the rain, as if terrified of being seen. I closed the door, my heart racing. I tore open the envelope. It wasn't money, nor was it classified company documents. It was a stack of medical records. Patient name, William Adams, my biological father. Diagnosis, severe tricuspid, valve stenosis. Requires immediate open-heart surgery. Estimated cost, $150,000. My limbs went weak, and the papers fluttered to the floor. I knew my dad had the heart condition, but I didn't expect it to deteriorate this rapidly. Why were these records in my father-in-law's hands and not mine? The next morning I called home. My mother sobbed into the phone. Hannah, your dad is in so much pain, but he refused to go to the hospital. He wanted to save the money so you wouldn't lose face with your wealthy in-laws. The other day, Richard visited us in Ohio. When he found out, he took the medical files, saying he would take care of it for us. I bit my lips so hard it bled. So Richard had gone to my hometown. He wasn't acting out of the goodness of his heart. He was gathering leverage. He knew my only weakness was my parents. Right at that moment, Tyler walked in. He dragged his suitcase into the foyer, his face flushed, reeking of ocean sun and stale alcohol. Seeing me sitting there in a daze, he kicked his suitcase into the corner. What are you sitting there for? Get me some orange juice. I stood up, but I didn't go get his juice. I shoved the medical file right in his face. Tyler, my dad needs emergency surgery. It costs $150,000. Can you lend it to me? Or advance me the money for the years I've worked for? You? I had lowered myself to the absolute bottom. It was my money, my hard work, but now I had to beg like a vagrant. Tyler glanced at the paper and scoffed. 150 grand? You think? Money grows on trees? All my cash is tied up in the new project. I don't have a single cent to spare. But you just went to a luxury resort in Cabo. The watch you bought Tiffany cost nearly 100 grand, I blurted out, the years of suppressed rage finally erupting. Ah, so you were stalking me. Tyler lunged forward, poking his finger hard into my forehead, shoving me back until I hit the wall, a sharp pain shooting up my spine. Let me tell you something. My money is mine. Whether I burn it or give it to girls is my right. As for your parents' trashy rundown house, sell the damn thing to pay for the surgery and stop running to me begging for handouts. A leech of a wife like you should be thanking her lucky stars. I feed you 3 meals a day. If that house is an inheritance, then let the old man die and get it over with, he roared, his face twisted into something terrifyingly cruel. Those words were like a bucket of boiling water thrown in my face. But, strangely, I didn't feel the pain anymore. I looked at the medical file in my left hand, then at Tyler. The corners of my mouth twitched into a faint, grim smile that he didn't catch. In truth, I had already wired the $150,000 directly to the hospital's account yesterday morning. My dad was scheduled for surgery tomorrow with the best cardiac team available. This paper, and this pathetic act of begging, was simply the very last chance I was willing to give him. I had told myself that if Tyler showed even a shred of humanity, if he was willing to spend even a single dollar to save his father-in-law, I would show mercy and leave him a way out. But no, he had slammed that door shut with his own hands. He didn't just kill our marriage, he trampled on basic human decency. I pulled the medical file back, my voice as dry and brittle as crushed autumn leaves. Fine, I understand. Thank you for giving me such a definitive answer. I quietly turned and walked upstairs. Tyler watched me go, muttered a curse, and headed into the bathroom. He had no idea that he had just signed the death warrant for his own future. Once in my room, I locked the door. I pulled a cheap black burner phone from the bottom of an old tote bag and dialed Carter. Hello, Hannah. Carter, unfreeze my Swiss accounts. Right now, my voice rang out, ice cold in the empty room. Are you sure? If we activate it now, the IRS and the SEC might notice the massive cash flow. I don't care anymore. Transfer $250,000 to the hospital in Ohio just in case, and use the rest to buy out 51% of the shares in the supplier company that provides materials for Tyler Holdings. Understood, boss? 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from the bank. My personal assets had been unfrozen. The impossibly long string of zeros made me smile. Bitterly. I was wealthy. Extremely wealthy. But I had chosen to live a life of ascetic servitude for a man who wasn't worth it. Downstairs, Tyler's voice boomed. Where is Hannah? Come down and iron my shirt. Hurry up, I have to entertain clients tonight. I walked out to the balcony, looking down at the driveway where Tyler's Porsche was parked. I picked up a heavy terracotta pot holding a massive, spiky agave, plant off the railing, admired it for a second, and let go. Crash! The pot smashed perfectly through the windshield of the Porsche, shattering the Porsche glass into a million pieces. The sound of breaking glass was as crisp and satisfying as the sound of my own soul breaking free. Oh my God, my car! Tyler ran out into the yard screaming in horror. I stood on the balcony looking down, smiling sweetly. Sorry, honey, my hands were slippery. Just like our vows slipped right out and shattered. But Tyler didn't know this drop was just the beginning. At that exact moment, I received a text from the private investigator I had hired. Got proof Tiffany is hooking up with a young toy boy. Meet me at Cafe X. Cafe X was tucked away in a quiet, dark alley, perfect for under the table dealings. I sat in a dim corner, wearing sunglasses, and a hat pulled low over my tame. A face. Sitting across from me was none other than Tiffany, the mistress who thought she was on top of the world. I had lured her here with an anonymous text. I have secret info about Tyler's inheritance. Come alone if you want to know. Greed is always the best bait for people like her. Who are you? Why did you call me out to this dump? Tiffany scowled, waving her hand to fan away the smell of stale cigarette smoke in the air. Her gaudy, rhinestone-encrusted acrylic nails clicked against the table. I took off my sunglasses and looked straight at her. It's you! Tiffany jumped, ready to grab her bag and leave. Hannah, are you trying to jump me? I'll call the cops. Sit down, I commanded. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried an authority that made Tiffany freeze and reluctantly perch on the edge of her seat. I'm going to hit you. It would dirty my hands. I just want to show you this. I slid an iPad across the table. On the screen was a crystal-clear video of Tyler wrapping his arm around the waist of a stunningly beautiful young woman at least 10 times more sophisticated than Tiffany walking into a five-star hotel. It was Chloe, the beloved daughter of a real estate tycoon, the major partner Tyler was desperately trying to sign a contract with. What is this?" Tiffany stammered, her eyes wide, her face pale. "Did you think you were the only one?" I laughed dryly, taking a sip of bitter, black coffee. "To Tyler, you're just a toy. A smokescreen to blind the public and blind me. But this," I pointed at the girl in the video, "is his real target, a golden goose. Tyler needs her father's capital to save his drowning company." "You're lying! Tyler said he loves me. He said he's going to marry me." Tiffany hissed, but her voice was already trembling. "Love?" I burst out laughing, a bitter sound. "If a man can betray the wife who built him up from nothing, do you really think he'll be loyal to a secretary who only knows how to spend money? He's using you to put his bad debts under your place's name. Why don't you double-check those papers he made you sign last week? See if they're transferring assets to you, or transferring debt." Tiffany's face went from red to dead white. She remembered the thick stack of legal documents Tyler had sweet-talked her into signing last week, claiming he was putting a condo in her name because she trusted him and was too lazy to read the fine print. She had signed them blindly. Why? Why are you telling me this?" Tiffany looked at me suspiciously. "Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend." I looked deep into her eyes. "I want a divorce, but I want to walk away clean. And you want money, right? If you help me expose him, I promise I will give you a sum large enough for you and your mother to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. But if you're still stupid enough to trust him, just wait until the debt collectors come." Knocking. Tiffany fell silent, her hands gripping the hem of her skirt so tightly it wrinkled. Her materialistic nature was fiercely battling the last remnants of her blind infatuation. What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice tiny. "Simple." I leaned close and whispered the plan. "At the family gathering this weekend, Tyler is going to announce his relationship with you. He wants to use you as a human shield in front of his relatives. Play along." But at the very last minute, right then, Tiffany's phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. "Hey baby, I'm busy. Entertaining VIP clients tonight. Can't come over. Sleep tight." Simultaneously, my phone buzzed. The PI had texted me. "Tyler just checked into room 304 at the Waldorf with Chloe." I showed my screen to Tiffany. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. The fire of vengeance flared in Tiffany's eyes. She grabbed her purse and stood up, glaring at me. "Fine. I'll show that bastard who he's messing with." I watched her walk out the door, thinking to myself, "Tyler, you're quite the ladies' man, but you forgot one rule. Never piss off two women at the exact same time." But before I could gloat, a large, rough hand clamped down heavily on my crimped shoulder from behind. "Very clever, Mrs. Adams. But did you forget whose turf this diner is on?" I whipped around. It was my father-in-law's personal driver, with a scarred face and a sinister grin. He had heard everything. Hank dragged me out to the car, ignoring my struggles. He threw me into the back seat, locked the doors, and called Richard. "Boss, your daughter-in-law is teaming up with the mistress to screw over your son." I caught them red-handed. I sat frozen, trying to suppress the rising panic. Richard was more cunning than I thought. He didn't trust anyone, not even his own son, and had people tailing every member of the family. Back at the Bel Air mansion, a funeral-like atmosphere hung in the air. Tyler sat on the sofa, fuming. Richard sat across from him, leaning on his cane, looking as though he wanted to eat me alive. Eleanor was standing, hands on her hips, screeching, "You treacherous, scheming bitch. You dare conspire with an outsider to ruin my son?" Eleanor lunged forward to slap me, but this time I dodged it. I didn't harm anyone, I was just defending myself. I shot back, my voice like, stale. Smack. This time it was Richard's heavy wooden cane striking my shin. Agony flared. I dropped to my knees, tears of sheer physical pain springing to my eyes. "You think you're smart, huh?" Richard growled. "I know all about your little games. You were going to leak rumors about the company dodging taxes, weren't you? You think I'd just let you cause chaos?" Tyler threw a folder on the ground in front of me. Divorce papers. Sign it. Sign it right now and get the hell out of my house with nothing. If you don't, Tyler sneered, your dad won't get a single pill for his heart. My dad again. They were using my father to blackmail me again. I looked at the divorce papers, looking at the faces contorted by greed and malice. I slowly stood up, brushing the dust off my pants despite the throbbing pain in my leg. You want me to sign? Fine, I'll sign. I picked up a pen and slashed my signature across the page without a second thought. Tyler and Richard looked at each other in shock. They thought I would cry, beg, or fight for assets. I put the pen down and looked straight into Tyler's eyes. I won't leave right this second. Tomorrow night, at the family gala, I will officially leave in front of the entire extended family and your partners. I want to preserve the last shred of dignity for this honorable family. What kind of trick are you pulling? Eleanor narrowed her eyes. No trick. I just want a proper farewell dinner. After tomorrow night, you will never have to see my face again. I spoke lightly, as if discussing the weather. Tyler calculated for a moment, then nodded. Fine. Tomorrow night is when I'm introducing Tiffany to the family anyway. It's good that you stay. And watch how happy I am, so you know you're nothing but a worthless old rag. I smiled, a cryptic smile that made Tyler shiver. He didn't know that my signature on that paper was only valid when I allowed it to be. That night, I lay in the familiar bedroom for the last time. I texted Carter. Plan B. Initiate at exactly 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. Bring the gift for Richard too. Suddenly, my bedroom door clicked open. It was Tiffany. She snuck in, her face swollen. It turned out she had been summoned here and threatened too. Hannah, Tiffany whispered, her voice shaking. They're forcing me to wear that dress tomorrow. What dress? The custom bridal gown Tyler's mom ordered for the real estate heiress. I want me to try it on to see the fit. They're treating me like a damn mannequin. I looked at Tiffany, seeing the utter humiliation in her eyes. I grabbed her. Cold hand. Don't worry. Tomorrow, that dress will be the burial shroud for this family's reputation. Early the next morning, the mansion was bustling. Truckloads of fresh flowers arrived, red lanterns were hung, and velvet-lined chairs were set up. Today was the grand family gala and corporate partner reception, a massive flex of power. For Tyler Holdings, Eleanor dragged me out of bed at 5 a.m., not to cook, but to do something infinitely more degrading. Get in here. Eleanor shoved me into the dressing room. Hanging on the rack was a breathtakingly expensive, white, jewel-encrusted Vera Wang gown with a thigh-high slit. Tiffany has morning sickness. She can't stand for fittings. You two are the same size. Put this on so I can check the silhouette. Then I can have it tailored for my future daughter-in-law to wear tonight. I was dead inside. She was forcing me, the lawful wife, to act as a fit model for the mistress's dress, so the mistress could parade around with my husband. Tonight. What, you refuse? Or do you want your father to? I'll wear it. I cut her off, my voice ice. I stripped off my pajamas and slipped into the expensive gown. The premium silk felt cool against my skin, but emotionally, it felt like 1,000 needles. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror. In the reflection was a strikingly beautiful, sharp woman, but her eyes were brimming with vengeance. The dress hugged my curves I had hidden under baggy housewife clothes for years. Eleanor circled me, clicking her tongue. Tisk, the body isn't bad. Pity about the miserable face. Take it off, hurry up. Don't get Tiffany's dress dirty. I looked at her through the mirror, then at the dress. A wild idea flashed in my mind. Mom, the zipper is stuck in the back. Could you help me pull it down? Eleanor huffed and stomped over. Useless. The moment she touched my back, I pretended to slip, falling backward right into hair. Riyib. The sound of tearing fabric was deafening. The heel of my stiletto deliberately caught the hem, ripping a massive gash from the thigh all the way up to the waist, destroying the inner lining. Ah! What did you do, you clumsy bitch? Eleanor shrieked like a slaughtered pig. That's $100,000 dress. You ruined it. You did that on purpose. I fell to the floor, bowing my head in sheer, exaggerated terror. I'm so sorry. I slipped. I didn't mean to. But beneath my hair, I was smirking. The dress was ruined. Let's see what Tyler's little muse would wear tonight. You! Eleanor raised her hand to strike me, but the doorbell chimed. Guests were arriving. She ground her teeth, pointing a finger at me. Watch your back tonight. Go down to the kitchen right now. Do not show your face upstairs. I trudged down to the kitchen, but in my pocket, my thumb tapped send on my Versend phone screen. Email successfully sent. To the Board of Directors, the SEC, and Major Shareholders. Subject: Fraudulent financial reports and embezzlement at Tyler Holdings. From Financial Consultant H.A. The bomb was armed. Only a few hours left. When the party hit its climax, it would detonate, blowing away all the glamorous lies of this family. I looked at the clock. 6 p.m. Carter texted. Car is waiting out back. Are you ready? I looked around the kitchen I had been chained to for 4 years, took off my stained apron, and threw it straight into the trash can. Ready. Let the show begin. Because of the ruined dress, the atmosphere in the house had plummeted. Eleanor angrily threw a drab, oversized gray dress at me, something fitting for an ODAG, unwanted guest, and banished me to the kitchen. I sat in the corner, picking mint leaves, my heart freezing over. Upstairs, laughter and chatter echoed down. The clinking of crystal glasses, a string quartet playing over the expensive sound system. The strong scent of Gucci and Chanel perfumes wafted down, masking the smell of garlic in the kitchen. They were celebrating. Celebrating Tyler's illusion of success. Celebrating the impending removal of their burden me. Tyler came down to the kitchen, looking slick in a tailored tuxedo, his hair perfectly slicked back. He looked at me without an ounce of affection, only fake, pity, and sheer contempt. You'd better behave yourself. All my uncles, aunts, and major partners are out. There tonight. Don't embarrass me. He adjusted his bow tie. Oh, and later, when I introduce Tiffany, make sure you smile. A big, happy smile. Don't give me that funeral face, or people will say we abuse you. I looked up at the man I once loved enough to lose myself. Standing before me was just a hollow, gaudy puppet. I gripped the mint leaves in my hand until they were crushed, my nails digging into my palms to stop myself from grabbing a butcher knife. Don't worry, I will smile. I'll smile very brightly to give you both my blessing, I replied, my voice light as air, but inside, a hurricane was brewing. Tyler scoffed, turning his back. Good. After this is done, I'll toss you some charity money so you can go back to the Midwest and start over. I watched him walk away, the corner of my mouth twitching up. Keep your charity, Tyler. Soon, you're going to need every last penny. My phone buzzed. Carter, everything is in position. 7 p.m. The show begins. I stood up, washing my dirty hands. I looked into the small mirror hanging on the kitchen wall. I looked exhausted, dark circles under my eyes, but those eyes were blazing with an unquenchable fire. I took off the wedding ring that had worn a groove into my ring finger for 4 years, placing it gently on the greasy counter. A sacred vow, now sitting next to the garbage. Fitting. Just then, Richard's booming voice echoed over the PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed partners, today, alongside celebrating my birthday, our family has a double joy to share. I took a deep breath, smoothing out the drab gray dress. It was time to step like Beta into the light. The kitchen doors swung open, and I walked out not as a servant, but as a judge entering the courtroom of fate. The grand ballroom of the five-star hotel was dazzling under crystal chandeliers. They hadn't just hosted it at the house. They had rented out the big city's premier ballroom to flex their power. I, as the soon-to-be ex-wife, was forced to walk around pouring wine, while Tiffany sat proudly at the VIP table. Since the Vera Wang was ruined, she wore a tight, bright red gown that squeezed her supposedly pregnant belly, the fake air she claimed to carry. She sat there, puffing out her chest, constantly rubbing her stomach, looking wildly smug. I carried a tray of red wine, weaving between the tables. The whispers were loud and clear. Is that Tyler's wife? She looks so frumpy. No wonder he's bored. I heard. They're getting divorced. The new girl is the real deal. Yeah, old money and carrying the first grandson. A perfect match. Richard's family is so blessed. The words were like poisoned darts. I bit my lip, forcing my hands to keep the tray steady. I had to hold on just a little longer. Tyler was on stage, holding a microphone, his face flushed from alcohol and ego. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to introduce a very special woman. The one who has stood by my side, my right hand in securing million-dollar contracts. For Tyler Holdings. He gestured toward Tiffany. The spotlight hit her. She stood up, bowing coyly. The fakeness of it made me want to vomit. And while we're at it, Tyler paused, scanning the room for me. I also want to thank Hannah, the wife who has taken care of the house for me all this time. Where are you, Hannah? Stand up so everyone can see you. All eyes turned to the dark corner where I stood. What was he trying to do? Publicly humiliate me by comparing the glamorous mistress to the worn-out wife in front of everyone? I slowly walked out into the blinding glare of the spotlights. I didn't smile, and I didn't cry. I stood tall, my back straight, my head held high. My drab, gray dress was jarring amidst a sea of sequins and silk, but my silence created an invisible, suffocating pressure that made the chatter die down immediately. Thank you, Tyler, I said. I didn't need a microphone. My voice was clear. Enough. Thank you for giving me the chance to stand here and witness your most glorious moment. Tyler frowned, sensing something off, but his arrogance blinded him. He sneered. All right, you can step back now. Everyone, a toast. Glasses clinked. Tiffany threw herself into Tyler's arms, both beaming. I faded back into the shadows and pulled out my phone. It was 7:30 p.m. I hit send on the second message. This one went directly to the personal phones of every shareholder and corporate partner sitting in the room. It read, please check your emails. The truth about the multi-million-dollar contracts and the liquidity of Tyler Holdings is waiting in your inbox. Seconds later, notification chimes began pinging sparsely, then erupted in a frenzy across the room. The smiles on the guests' faces froze, brows furrowed. Suspicious glances darted toward the stage, where Tyler and Tiffany were still, lost in their delusions of grandeur. I leaned against a pillar, arms crossed. The prelude was over. Time for the main event. Oblivious, Tyler walked down to the head table, where his parents and the most important VIPs sat. He beckoned Tiffany. Come here, baby. Today is a happy day. You need to sit in the seat you deserve. I held my breath. The moment had arrived. The round table sat 12, covered in a gold-embroidered cloth. Right in the middle, facing Richard and Eleanor, was the hostess chair, the seat that, by all rules of high society etiquette, belonged exclusively to me. I was standing right next to it, holding a pair of silver serving tongs, preparing to serve my Laplos, mother-in-law out of a years-long habit of servitude. Tyler led Tiffany over. Her cloying perfume hit me, masking the scent of the caviar on the table. Tyler looked at me, his eyes sharp as a razor, and commanded, Hannah, get up. This seat isn't for you anymore. The entire table went dead silent. Relatives, investors, everyone stopped, eating, staring at us. The air grew thick, so tense you could hear the hum of the AC. I looked up at Tyler. Excuse me? This is your wife's seat. Tyler laughed a cold, bone-chilling laugh of pure contempt. He placed a hand on Tiffany's shoulder, raising his voice so the whole table could hear. It is a wife's seat, but the person who deserves it is Tiffany, the one who brings a future to this family. What have you ever brought besides bad luck and poverty? Eleanor chimed in from across the table, her voice dripping with venom. Hannah, know your place, and move aside so Tiffany can sit down and rest. My grandson is much more important than your thick skull. Tiffany stood there, feigning innocence, but her eyes screamed victory. She nudged my hip lightly. Hannah, let me have it, please. My back aches. I looked around the table. Richard was calmly sipping his wine, treating me like thin air. The relatives looked away or stared with a mix of pity and mockery. Not a single person spoke up for me. No one remembered that for the past 4 years, I was the one who managed everything in this family. It was all shattered. I slowly set the silver tongs down on the porcelain plate. Clack. It was a small sound, but it echoed loudly in the deathly silence. I didn't cry, scream, or echo, throw a jealous fit like they expected. I calmly pulled the linen napkin from my lap, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. Every movement was slow, deliberate, radiating an aura they had never seen in Hannah the maid. I stood up and smoothed my dress. I looked straight into Tyler's eyes, my own, gaze as dry and deep as an abyss. Fine, you can have the chair. Worship each other on it for all I care. With that, I turned and walked away. My heels clicked firmly against the marble, floor. Behind me, I heard Tyler's booming laugh. That's more like it. Have a grain. Seat, babe. I didn't care anymore. I checked the vintage watch on my left wrist. The second. Hand was ticking toward 12. 7:30 p.m. I counted down in my head. 3, 2, 1. Just as my foot hit the threshold of the main doors, the first phone rang, ripping through the fake tranquility of the party. Ring, ring, ring. It wasn't my phone, it was Richard's. And then, like a domino effect, a chaotic symphony of ringtones and text alerts erupted from Tyler's pocket, Eleanor's purse, and every single partner at the table. A chorus of impending doom. What? Accounts frozen? By who? Richard's panicked voice shattered the triumphant mood. I stopped, my hand resting on the brass door handle, the corner of my mouth, curling into an icy smile. The main act had begun. Hello, where is the bank manager? Why are the corporate credit lines locked? What the hell are you people doing? Tyler screamed into his phone, his face turning purple, completely forgetting Tiffany next to him. Mr. Chairman, Tyler Holdings stock is in freefall. The market is bleeding. There are rumors we forged our financial reports. An executive at the next table shouted, his hands shaking as he held up an iPad. The ballroom descended into chaos. The elegant guests who had been toasting seconds ago were now pale as ghosts, scrambling on their phones to check their assets. At the head table, Richard dropped his glass of red wine. The blood-red liquid stained the white tablecloth like a crime scene. He stared at his phone, reading the alert email from the SEC. You stupid bastard, Richard roared in agony. Suddenly, he swung his arm. Smack! A brutal slap landed square on Tyler's face. The force sent Tyler stumbling backward, crashing into Tiffany. Tiffany shrieked as the chair she had just stolen tipped backward, sending her sprawling onto the Pablo floor, her red dress flying up in a humiliating display. Dad, what are you doing? Tyler held his cheek, staring at his father in shock, having no idea what was happening. Look at what you've done. What did you sign with the partners? Why did our financial guarantor pull all the backing? Richard grabbed his son by the preple collar, shaking him violently as if trying to rattle the stupidity out of his brain. Do you even know who the guarantor holding all the company's debt was? It was my wife. It was Hannah, Tyler stammered. But she's just a dummy. Figurehead who signs papers. A dummy figurehead, my ass. Richard shoved Tyler away, panting, clutching his chest. She just filed to revoke her power of attorney. She reported the company for fraud. She's the one holding 51% of our voting shares. You're dead, son. This whole family is dead. The ballroom fell dead silent once again. Every single eye snapped toward the Beery's doorway where I was still standing. I slowly turned around. The subservient, beaten-down look was gone. I stood, tall, my piercing gaze sweeping over their utterly horrified faces. I pulled out my phone, which had been live streaming to Facebook the whole time, and held it up. Hi, everyone, I said, my voice calm but carrying across the silent room. Hope you're all enjoying the live broadcast of this honorable families event of the quote century. Great views, good food, and the drama is top tier. Hannah, you bitch. You dare. Eleanor lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone. But before she could even get close, two massive men in black suits stepped in. Front of me, blocking her. Carter's bodyguards. Carter walked in through the main doors, exuding authority, carrying a leather briefcase. He walked straight up to me and offered a respectful bow. Madam, Chairman, all procedures are complete. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is on their way. Madam Chairman? Tyler stammered, his eyes bulging. What did you just call? This maid? Carter pushed his glasses up his nose, looking at Tyler with utter pity. Mr. Tyler, you should wash your ears out. The woman standing before you is not a maid. This is Miss Hannah Adams, also known in the financial world as HAA, Senior Financial Consultant, and currently the largest single creditor of this empty shell of a company. The whispers exploded louder than before. HA? The legendary shark in the pros investment world. Someone everyone had heard of, but no one had ever seen, was the country bumpkin daughter-in-law who stayed home cooking dinner. I smiled, a gentle but ruthless smile. Surprised? I told you. You wouldn't be able to sit in that chair for long. Right on cue, the wail of police sirens echoed from the distance, growing, louder, tearing through the quiet night outside. The VIP room of the restaurant had been transformed into a temporary Brock's Brabla interrogation room. The police locked down the scene. The guests had fled. Only Richard's family, Tiffany, and I remained. Tyler sat slumped on the floor, his tie undone, sweating profusely. Tiffany, huddled in a corner, pale as a ghost, clutching her stomach, even though I knew the pregnancy was a lie. Hannah. Honey. Tyler crawled toward me, reaching for my leg. I was wrong. That homewrecker bewitched me. Please forgive me. We're husband and wife. We swore forever. I took a step back, avoiding his filthy hands like a plague. Don't call me. Honey. It makes me sick. I spoke coldly. You signed the divorce papers. Our assets were clearly defined in the prenup that you never bothered to read properly. You leave with nothing, along with $50 million in tax debt and loan, shark money you borrowed under your own name to fund this mistress's shopping sprees. 50 million? Tiffany screamed in horror. You said you were filthy. Rich, why is there debt? Shut up. Tyler turned and slapped Tiffany hard across the face. It's your fault. You demanded houses, cars, designer bags. I had to take out shadow loans to please you, and now you dare yell at me. You bastard. You lied to me. You said you'd take care of me forever. Tiffany lunged at Tyler, scratching and clawing. The two who had sworn eternal love were now tearing each other apart like cornered wild animals. Eleanor sat in a chair, weeping hysterically. Hannah, please. I'm begging you. Have mercy on an old woman and let him off. We still have the Bel Air mansion. We can sell it to pay the debt. The mansion? I cut her off, pulling out a document. Did you forget? 3 months ago, Tyler secretly mortgaged the deed to invest in crypto and lost it. All. The bank sold that bad debt to my firm. I tossed the paper onto the table. It was a foreclosure notice. In other words, the house you live in, the chairs you sit on, the food you eat, it all belongs to me. And I'm giving you 24 hours to get out. Richard clutched his chest, gasping for air, his face turning purple. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You are a poisonous snake. How long have you been plotting this? I looked him dead in the eye, unflinching. Since the day you took my father's medical records to blackmail me. Since the day your son threw money in my face. Since the day your wife treated me worse than a dog. I am not a snake, Richard. I'm just the one teaching you a lesson about karma. Where are the police? Arrest her. She's committing fraud. Extortion. Richard screamed in despair. Just then, the lead detective walked in, his face stern. Richard Tyler, Jr., you are both coming with us to the precinct for questioning regarding tax, evasion, embezzlement, and corporate fraud. We have all the evidence provided by Miss Adams. The cold click of handcuffs echoed in the room. Tyler was dragged away, constantly looking back at me, begging. Tiffany was grabbed by a female officer. Her name was on the list of accomplices for money laundering. Hannah, save me. I was tricked too. I'll confess everything. I'll be a witness. Tiffany wailed, her mascara running down her face, exposing her hollow, terrified features. I looked at Tiffany, offering a faint smile. Don't worry, you'll have a chance to confess. You'll have plenty of time in a cell. I turned and walked out of the room. Carter was waiting at the door, holding a coat for me. All done? He asked. This is just the beginning, I replied, taking a deep breath of the free night. Tomorrow, I still have to get justice for my dad. Behind me, the wailing of the Tyler family echoed, but it sounded as distant as cries from hell. I walked away, my shadow stretching long under the yellow. Streetlights alone, but prouder than ever before. The holding cell smelled of stale cigarette smoke and the damp, depressing stench of captivity. Tiffany sat huddled in the corner. Her expensive red dress was wrinkled like a dirty rag, her heavy makeup smeared by tears, creating horrific black streaks down to her chin. She no longer had the haughty, fierce attitude of the woman who had tried to order me around just yesterday. Now, she was just a wounded animal looking for a way to bite back to survive. I stood outside the iron bars, holding my Hermes Birkin, my face completely devoid of emotion. I wasn't here to mock her. I was here to throw her a life, preserve her. Hannah, Tiffany rushed forward, gripping the iron bars, her acrylic nails, scraping against the metal with an agonizing screech. Save me, I told them. Everything, I told them Tyler forced me to sign. I'm just a victim. I looked at her and shook my head slightly. Do you think the cops believe the empty words of a mistress? Tyler is pinning everything on you. He told them you were the mastermind, that you seduced him into embezzling company funds to buy luxury goods, and that he was just blindly in love. What? That absolute bastard! Tiffany screamed, her voice cracking with fury. The veins on her neck bulged. He dares blame me. He's the thief. He was the one who told me to put those shell companies in my name to launder the money. I know, I replied calmly. But where is your proof? Your signature is on the documents. You can't run from that. Tiffany collapsed in despair. She pulled at her hair, her eyes wild. Suddenly, it was as if she remembered something. She frantically dug through the lining of her confiscated designer bag sitting on the guard's desk, which I had gotten permission to bring near her for personal items. My phone. Let me borrow a phone, Tiffany said, shaking. I have proof. I recorded him. One time, when he was drunk, he bragged to me about how he cooked the books. I filmed it just in case. I smirked. When thieves fall out, they never trust each other completely. I signaled the desk sergeant, a contact of Carter's, who nodded and let Tiffany use her phone for 5 minutes under supervision. Tiffany's shaking fingers swiped frantically across the screen. She found the video, a venomous glint in her eyes. Tyler, you want me to die? I'll drag you to hell with me. Tiffany didn't send the video to the police immediately. She did exactly what Tane had anticipated. She posted it to social media. With over 500,000 followers on her TikTok, mostly bots and gossipers, the video would spread at light speed. In the video, Tyler, the supposedly respectable CEO, was shirtless, holding an Oblonger's drink, his face red, laughing arrogantly. Don't worry, babe. The company's money is my money. My stupid wife signed the POA. If anyone goes to jail, she does. We'll just enjoy the cash. I just pulled out $5 million under the table. I'll buy you that Mercedes tomorrow. Every word out of Tyler's mouth was a knife stabbing his own throat. Tiffany laughed maniacally as it uploaded, tears still streaming down her face. It was the laugh of a lunatic who had found the cruelest revenge. It's done. It's all done. Tiffany dropped the phone. Hannah, I did what you wanted. You promised. You promised to help my mom. I keep my promises, I said, looking at the phone screen lighting up with non-stop notifications. The internet was exploding. A tsunami of public outrage would drown Tyler Holdings in spit before the law even got to him. My lawyers will bail you out on the grounds of seeking psychiatric treatment. That's the only way to reduce your sentence right now. Tiffany stared at me, then burst into racking sobs. She knew her life as she knew it was over, but at least her mother wouldn't be harassed by debt collectors. I walked out of the precinct. Outside, the rain had started to pour. Heavy drops whipped against my face, stinging with cold. I opened my umbrella. The social media storm had begun, and when the sun rose tomorrow, the Tyler family would wake up in a nightmare they could never escape. My phone buzzed. A message from the bank. Foreclosure complete. The Bel Air mansion would be locked up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I looked at the screen and whispered, goodbye. At exactly 8 a.m., the bank's trucks and the sheriff's deputies pulled up to the gates of the Tyler estate. I stepped out of Carter's luxury SUV, wearing a sharp black power suit. I was no longer the ragged housewife. The iron gates were wide open. Inside the courtyard, it looked like a war zone. Belongings were thrown everywhere. Fake Louis Vuitton suitcases had burst open, designer clothes were scattered on the wet driveway, and expensive feng shui paintings were ripped off the walls. Eleanor was clutching a Ming Dynasty vase, her most prized possession she used to flaunt to guests sitting on the wet ground, wailing, "Help! They're robbing my house! Where are the police? Why aren't you arresting these robbers?" Richard leaned against the porch pillar, leaning heavily on his cane, his face gray as he watched strangers slap foreclosure notices on his doors and furniture. The man who had spent his life valuing prestige and status above all else was now watching his empire be torn apart by vultures. Tyler, who had just been bailed out pending trial, stood frozen, staring at me. He had a patchy beard, dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes smelled of stale sweat. He looked at me without his former arrogance, leaving only shock and terror. "Hannah, you really did it?" Tyler stammered, his voice hoarse. "You kicked my parents out on the street? My dad has high blood pressure." I stopped in front of him, taking off my sunglasses, looking him dead in the eye. "You care about your dad's blood pressure now? What about when you told me to sell my parents' house and let my dad die of a heart condition? Did you care about his blood pressure then?" Tyler choked on his words. He took a step back, tripping over a pile of shoes, nearly falling over. "You cold-blooded bitch!" Eleanor lunged at me, trying to grab my hair, but Carter's bodyguards easily restrained her. She screamed, "I fed you! I brought you into this house and you destroyed us." "You fed me?" I laughed, a cold sound echoing through the empty courtyard. "For 4 years, the grocery money came from my savings. Your medication was paid for by my freelance accounting. Even that massage chair you sleep in every night was bought with my Christmas bonus. When did you ever feed me? Or did you just view me as a slave?" I signaled to the bank officers. "Clear it out. If it's not on the foreclosure list, they can take it. Seal the rest." Smash. The Ming vase slipped from Eleanor's hands and shattered into 1,000 pieces on the concrete. She stared at the shards, then at me, her eyes hollow. It wasn't just a broken vase. It was the total collapse of the fake empire she had spent her life building. Neighbors from the wealthy enclave had started gathering at the gates, whispering and pointing. "Look, Eleanor used to brag about her genius son and obedient daughter-in-law. Now they're being evicted. Karma is real." Those words were like salt in Richard's wounds. He clutched his chest and slowly sank to his knees. Tyler rushed over to hold him. Dad, what's wrong?" I watched the scene without a ripple of emotion in my heart. I took an envelope from my pocket and placed it on a stone patio table, the only thing not yet, tagged with a foreclosure sticker. Inside is the address to a cheap motel in the valley. I've paid for 3 months in advance. Consider it my last act of charity for the elderly. I looked at Tyler. "As for you, fend for yourself. Don't be a larger burden to your parents than you already are." I turned and walked away. The rain began to fall heavily again. I got into the car and closed the door, completely shutting out the noisy, pathetic world behind me. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Tyler pick up the envelope, his hands shaking, rain and tears mixing on his haggard face. He watched my car leave with the desperate eyes of a drowning man watching the last lifeboat sail away. The car rolled down the hill. I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the seat. It was over. Or rather, the punishment was just beginning. 3 months later, at the Los Angeles County Superior Court, the divorce proceedings between Tyler and me went shockingly fast. There was no bitter battle over assets, simply because Tyler had 0 assets left to fight over. He sat at the defendant's table, his head bowed. He had no lawyer. He couldn't afford one. Carter sat next to me, composed and sharp, presenting a thick stack of files to the judge. "Your Honor," Carter stated clearly, "per the prenuptial agreement and various loan documents, the defendant's current net worth is severely negative. Specifically, Tyler Adams is carrying $50 million in personal debt from predatory lenders and corporate tax liabilities." The judge adjusted his glasses, looking at Tyler. "Does the respondent have any objection?" Tyler shook his head, his voice as quiet as a mosquito. I agree to the divorce." He knew holding on was useless. He had hoped that if he agreed, quietly, I might show mercy, or at least spare what was left of his ruined family. Regarding children, the parties have none. Regarding assets, the court recognizes the mutual agreement. The court grants the dissolution of marriage between Hannah Adams and Tyler. The gavel banged against the sound block. That sound was the snapping of my chains. I let out a long breath of relief. I was finally free. Free physically, emotionally, and legally. I walked out of the courthouse. The bright California sun shone down on the bright steps. Tyler chased after me, looking ragged and pathetic. Hannah! Hannah! I stopped but didn't turn around, only tilting my head slightly. Hannah, I know I was wrong. I've lost everything. Can you lend me a little bit of capital? I swear I'll start over. I'll pay you back double. I turned to look at the man who used to be my entire world. Now, he was just a beggar of the past. A desperate gambler still hallucinating a comeback. Capital? I smiled faintly. The greatest capital a person has is their reputation and their character. You sold both of those for some cheap nights? With a mistress. What do you have left to offer me as collateral? I still have my health. I'll do manual labor. Then congratulations. I pulled a small slip of paper from my bag, not a check, but a business card. This is the address of a construction site hiring laborers. The foreman is a contact of mine. I got you a spot. Doing hard labor in the sun might help wash some of that filthy calculation out of your head. Tyler took the card, his hands shaking violently. A CEO who used to drive a cane chair, Porsche, and live in Bel Air, now carrying bricks and mixing cement in the midday heat. What, you don't want it? Or do you want to go to a federal penitentiary right now? I growled. Tyler frantically shook his head, shoving the card into his pocket like a lifeline. He knew that if he didn't have a job to pay the interest to the loan, sharks, he wouldn't even keep his life. Thank you, Hannah, he muttered, tears spilling over, his utter humiliation keeping him from looking me in the eye. I stepped into Carter's car. Before closing the door, I tossed one last sentence at him, soft but piercing. Tyler, this lesson in growing up cost $50 million. And my youth. Learn it well. Don't make me teach it to you again, because next time, the price will be your life. The car drove off. I looked through the window and saw Tyler squat down on the glangs, courthouse steps, burying his face in his hands, sobbing like an abandoned child. But I felt no pity. Misplaced pity is just slow suicide. I had died once. Now, I had to live for myself. A month later, the sudden winter rains hit LA. I was sitting in a small, unassuming diner I frequented, the same one where I had met Tiffany, but my mindset was completely different. In front of me was a steaming bowl of clam chowder. I ate happily, no longer terrified of rushing home to cook, no longer afraid of my mother-in-law yelling at me. Across the street, under the awning of a convenience store, a man was huddled to escape the rain. He wore a frayed t-shirt, cement-stained khaki pants, and worn-out boots. He was gnawing on a plain piece of bread, staring blankly into the white sheet of rain. Tyler. He was incredibly thin, his skin tanned dark and leathery from the construction site. The arrogant, slicked-back aura was gone. He looked weathered, aging 10 years in a matter of months. A speeding luxury SUV splashed through a puddle, sending dirty water flying all over Tyler. He jumped, hurriedly brushing it off, muttering under his breath, but didn't dare yell. The driver gave him a dirty look in the rearview mirror and sped off. That was the law of the world. When you're at the top, people look up to you. When you fall into the mud, they will step right over you. I watched the scene, my heart strangely at peace. No gloating, no lingering resentment. Just the feeling of watching a documentary about karma. My phone rang. It was my mother calling from Ohio. Hi, Mom. Hannah, your dad just got back from his checkup. The doctor said his new valve is working perfectly. He doesn't have to worry about a thing. And hey, yesterday a stranger sent your dad a package of expensive vitamins and a bit of cash. No return name, just a note saying, repaying a debt. Do you think it's a friend of yours? I smiled, looking across the street at Tyler. I knew that out of his meager first paycheck from the construction site, he didn't use it to pay his debts or buy alcohol. He sent it to my father. The last shred of humanity in him, thankfully, hadn't been entirely buried by his greed. Yeah, Mom. It's probably a friend. Just accept it. It'll make them happy. I hung up and asked for the check. As I walked out, I passed by where Tyler was sitting. He looked up and met my eyes. He froze, opening his mouth to call my name, but then immediately lowered his head in deep shame. I didn't stop. I didn't say a word. I simply placed a blue umbrella on the bench, next to him, An umbrella exactly like the one he had held over me on our very first date years ago. I walked out into the rain, leaving behind the past and a silent forgiveness. The cycle of karma was complete. He was paying the price, and he was learning how to be a human being from scratch. That was enough. My phone buzzed again. Carter, Hannah, the Women's Startup Foundation project. Just got approved. Want to come see the new office? I texted back. Be right there. I hailed a cab, heading toward downtown LA, where the skyscrapers pierced the gray sky. Later, I stood on the rooftop of a high-rise in the financial district. The wind whipped through my new, sharp bob haircut. Below me, Los Angeles glittered with millions of lights. Carter stood next to me, handing me a glass of wine. Congratulations, President of the Phoenix Foundation. He clinked his glass against mine, his eyes warm and respectful. Thank you, to my amazing partner. I smiled, taking a sip. The slight tartness mixed perfectly with the sweet finish so different from the bitter tears of the bust. Do you regret it? Carter asked, looking into my eyes. What you did to them? I shook my head, looking out at the horizon. No, Carter. I only regret that I didn't do it sooner. I let myself sleep in submission for far too long. But, thanks to them, I realized exactly how strong I am. I remembered the Hannah of 4 years ago, timid, fearful, constantly walking on eggshells, and the Hannah of today, confident, independent, holding her destiny in her own hands, ready to help other women trapped in hellish marriages. What are you going to do next? I took a deep breath of the free air. I'm going to travel. I'm going to study psychology. I'm going to love myself. And maybe. I turned to look at Carter, who was already looking at me, the reflection of a shining woman in his eyes. I'll open my heart to a new love, if it's worth it. I can wait, Carter said softly, until you're ready. I didn't answer, just smiled. I reached out and gripped the railing, feeling the solid reality of the present. Down below, the river of life rushed on. Some were happy, some were paying the price for their sins. As for me, I had found my own path. One last notification popped up on my phone from the bank's system. Alert. The Maces.org charity foundation has just received a large anonymous donation, accompanied by the message, "Thank you for giving me the chance to start over." I turned off my phone and looked up at the starry night sky. The past was officially closed. Tomorrow, the sun would rise again, and it was going to be a blazing, beautiful day.